So what I'd like to start with is in relation to our last interview.
Sure.
We established the fact that you are not, indeed, not a tea leaf reader. You do not read tea leaves.
No,
But I
I don't.
have received over the past few months, I have received negative comments stating that Joseph Atwill is not a real scholar or not a true scholar. I presume that people who have stated this are trying to state that you're not a professor at a university. So, how would you respond to such criticism that you are not a real scholar?
Well, I would say that the analysis I produce speaks for itself, and those that are looking for credentials rather than coherent analysis are, you know, that's a kind of ad hominem, attack, which is just not worthy of being responded to. Um, if New Testament scholarship, in fact, had been a system that had produced just kind of mechanical truth, then you and I wouldn't be having this discussion. There are hundreds of different theories, um, uh, and so it's just not something that one can point to, credentials and then, demand the public or expect the public to think what, they're saying is meaningful. So um, I would I've actually over the years have uh, been happy that I didn't have attachments to any university in this regard, because the I've just gotten less and less respect for New Testament scholarship. Um, it's a strange world. It's a thimble world, where there is no capacity to falsify anything. You have just theories that are diametrically opposed, uh, and yet can exist side by side because there's no process by which you can, say this is real or this is not real. It's so therefore it's become, every new PhD can come up with a new theory of Jesus. Um, the theory that I brought forward is one that is different in that it actually completely relies upon evidence and the capacity for comprehension. Um, I don't use anything other than extant texts, and I don't manipulate them in any way. I actually leave the text in the natural or the received, um, document, and simply point out that if you compare them side by side, there is an obvious pattern that, um, is visible, and and then the conclusions I regard about the sequence is also pretty much self-evident. So I would just say to the people that are wondering about qualifications is that, please simply look at the evidence, and you'll see it's a different quality of evidence. That's really the qualification, is that the kind of evidence that I bring forward is simply, one that a regular person who is a good reader can look at and make their own judgment. They don't need to be told what is real or meaningful by someone who has a PhD in New Testament studies. So this would be the first response. The second response I would have is that my work was vetted by Harold Ellens, Dr. Ellens, when I first brought it out, like 20 years ago. And he was, in my regard, like the probably the most accomplished New Testament scholar uh, in the United States. He functioned as a referee, kind of a technical referee of the Society of Biblical Literature. Knew all the theories, had all of the credentials that are in existence in New Testament studies, and he worked with me in terms of errata and of things that didn't make sense to him, and he was very supportive of the work, thought it was really meaningful and original. In fact, he gave me a very important blurb that I have on the cover of Caesar's Messiah.
Mhm.
So, and then of course I have other scholars, that I could point to, many of them, but I don't think it's really necessary or even meaningful because uh, I'm pointing to extant texts. I'm not manipulating them or mistranslating them or putting them in different orders. I'm simply bringing out what is really something that the authors of the New Testament were intending for the reader to eventually comprehend. I mean, it's hidden, it's cryptic, but once you start to understand kind of the sequence and the prefiguration typology that's being developed, well, what can I say? It simply is self-evident, and I would just stand on that. I don't really, I rarely get into kind of the attacking New Testament scholars on the fact that their theory that has been developed in their PhD thesis and in their history of scholarship
Mhm.
is is either good or bad. It just is sort of irrelevant because as I said, I just have such a different quality of evidence, bring forward the text, and people can make their own judgment. So that's what I would say to those that are
Very
wondering
good.
about my qualifications as a New Testament scholar.
So Joseph Atwill is indeed a scholar, and Joseph Atwill is not a tea leaf reader. So we have
No,
established this.
yeah, no, it's not tea leaves, Bill. I use the extant text. I
Yeah.
mean, when people are like pointing to Q as an explanation for the synoptic problem, this is reading tea leaves. I mean,
Mhm.
this is a completely an assumption that is developed out of logic and conjecture. There's no physical evidence for Q. It's just something. It's a way of their
Mhm.
being able to explain something which is inexplicable to them because their entire theory of the New Testament and is incorrect, and so they have to come up with things which are
Mhm.
basically fantasies in order to hold.